Okay. Hello, uh, brave souls, or spirits, or whatever we all are here. Welcome to one of our identify as being sessions. Very different from when we're treating a treatise on cosmic fire. Much less specific detail gone over with meticulous entirety. I love that phrase associated with the great second ray. I think I'm just trying to remember, but somewhere in esoteric psychology, I think volume 2, around page 394, roughly, DK details the meaning of meticulous entirety. And that's how he works. So, of all the masters who may be offering something about the truth of the ageless wisdom, he seems to be the expert regarding a meticulous. That means you don't forget any detail, although he can only give us so much. He seems to offer a meticulous accounting of the rays, the astrological signs and planets and houses, and the creative hierarchies, which are really, how I understand it. Anyway, that's all I can ever give you, is how I understand it. Could be wrong, but I try. He gives you this categorization of ranks of monads. Every creative hierarchy is a collection of monads working at a certain point of tension, which is really a point of revelation. A point of tension is a point of revelation. And whether it's usually on the cosmic physical plane, which is comprising both the cosmic etheric subplanes, logoic, monadic, atmic, buddhic, or the cosmic dense subplanes, which basically is the dense physical body of the solar logos, as far as we are concerned, operating on the mental, emotional, and the usual etheric physical plane. So, let's try to get the structure straight from behind the scenes, so at least we understand the context a little bit, the context in which we are working. And of course, it is a context in which only the trained esotericist will have any real interest or knowledge. It's just another language to the ordinary thinking person. And we have to at least find a way to get across in our teaching some of the principles, so that the acceptance of the ageless wisdom by the end of this century can be an accomplished fact. Madame Blavatsky said it would have to be accepted by the end of this century, or at least that was the goal. So I want to, thank Michael and Joe for being here on our communications team. And they are, very, very helpful in keeping me on the straight and narrow path. And just to welcome Anne Veronica and Anna Sklar and Annette, Evett, and Ario from Finland, least we have a little Finnish representation here, and Astra, and oh, my son Brennan just happened to show up too. Hi, okay, and Catherine, and thanks for that hint the other day about number locks, and Francois, and Georgina, and Heike from Germany, and Johi from, I think, South Korea, and Karen, Lori, and Martine, Risto, also from Finland, and Vivian, and Yvonne Weniger, a frequent guest, and Carl Sarver, who has helped us so very much in creating the temples when we had these conferences in person, which has not really been possible of late. So welcome all of you, and I hope that you get something out of this, because it's really different. You know, I decided that, well, I've always been one to invent my own language or languages. And I've always thought that in order to convey with any kind of experienceability what I'm thinking about, I have to have my own language. And maybe it will be agreeable to some or disagreeable to some, but at least I'm working on presenting something that will give the experience of the intangible. Now, as far as mental propositions and mental detail, Master DK gives more than enough, as he said, more than we can ever absorb. But he, maybe wisely, except for some few hints, refrains from getting too much into what we might call the science of being. I mean, he hints at it all the time. And basically, he kind of tells you what it isn't. And the astrological factors under which this great science can be studied, or is likely to be studied. Now, I would say, you know, if we are sincere in following Master DK's work, we're going to try to become what is called an accepted disciple. That would be the minimum goal ahead of us, and he gives us ways of recognizing whether or not that experience is coming our way. But beyond that, there are many higher points of tension. And remember what I just said earlier. A point of tension is a point of revelation, like the rungs on the ladder of consciousness. So the more you intensify your points of tension, the more is revealed to you of the higher planes and their states of consciousness, whether we're talking about the plane of soul, the planes of the triad, or even one day the plane of the monad, and even one day, as is true for the Christ and the Buddha, the plane of the council chamber of Shamballa. which is the logoic plane or the sea of fire. Most of this is, just words to us, but as we begin to climb through experience rather than just through mental concepts, the whole thing begins to make more sense. And then we know we are really committed to the path of spiritual occultism. I do always preface the word occultism when dealing with what we are pursuing, because there is a low form of occultism, and we don't want to have much to do with that. We have to be aware of it, but it is oftentimes accompanied by selfishness, manipulation, misleading, destruction, and it veers off onto the left-hand path. And, the word sinister, which kind of has come to mean in English evil, is also a way of indicating the left hand. So there's dexter and sinister, and we want the dexterous path, the path of righteousness when it comes to pursuing occultism. Okay, now take notes, because I'm going to do my usual thing here, which is basically to give a lecture in the form of a meditation. This is maybe the only study group in which I do that. I kind of, read very slowly and pause frequently for us to consider these often foreign ideas and see if they can begin to mean something to us, experiential, not just concepts. Concepts are okay, you got to have them, but beyond the concept is the experience of what the concept represents. So let's get ourselves into a meditative mood, meditative posture, however you prepare yourself for meditation. And by the way, if you re-listen to what we're doing here, and there come these pauses, you don't have to think that the video has failed. We are simply in a state of reflection, which happens now and then. So the first thing we will do is to focus your heart and the life within your heart so that you notice that behind all your perceptions is something we might call motionlessness. Motionlessness. if you can begin to detect the motionlessness. Parmenides, the pre-Socratic philosopher, was a great advocate of the doctrine of non-movement when it comes to what reality is. So ours is a search for reality and not for that which masquerades in many different forms as reality. Try to feel into the motionlessness. Isness. Isness characterizes motionlessness. If you discover isness, you will discover motionlessness, and if you discover motionlessness, you will discover isness. It's everywhere if you regard time and space as realities. Wherever you detect it, regardless of where you may detect it, everything, says Heraclitus, is in motion. True. From the myopic point of view, but Maya is not the essence of reality. So, in fact, you are coming to the point, let us say, where you detect this motionless isness as the substratum of all your perceptions. It doesn't make any difference what you perceive. It all arose from the substratum of motionless isness. Oh, I know, there are some strange ideas there, but I'm adding a few things as I go. if there were not this motionless isness, none of the things that move would even exist. Motionless isness. If you really want to put first things first and the essential above the non-essential, then having some experience of motionless isness is a key factor. And we can say and think that motionless isness lacks all of what we usually call quality: color, sound, vibration. Motionless isness is not about the quality of the form which has arisen from the beingness of motionless isness. These are equivalent: motionlessness, isness, and beingness. Now, I'm just looking around the room, and my formal perceptions are changing because I'm moving, and my perceptions are altered because I'm moving. But motionless isness is felt in the heart, the seat of life and of being, and it is not revealed by changing your perceptions. It's something other than all these changing perceptions, maybe 80, 90% of which come through the eye. In the arcane school, we used to study from Agni Yoga the doctrine of the eye and the doctrine of the heart. Needless to say, the doctrine of the heart was more advanced, much more advanced. So motionless isness is felt in the heart. And you can change whatever perceptions you like, but not for a moment is the substratum of motionless isness compromised by your changing perceptions. At the end of this, I have a little mantra which you can use to help you view life in Maya from an altered and higher perspective. Now, just advise you to kind of go along with all this, whether you think you grasp it right now or not. I don't grasp it fully, I'm working on it. And we all will get there. The origin, note all caps, of intra-universal motionless isness, let me make sure it's a capital, the origin of intra-universal, whatever universe it may be. And you have experienced all of them, and in fact are all of them. The origin of intra-universal motionless isness is, all caps, motionless isness, all caps, best I can do, which is supra universal, above and beyond any universe. So the intra-universal depends upon the supra-universal or extra-universal. And the supra-universal deity has that quality, or I can't call it a quality, it has that something, but not in the ultimate degree. It is absoluteness, all caps, absoluteness, the absolute of which Blavatsky speaks so often. It is absoluteness, which is the ultimate motionless isness. And, you know, we're not going to be able to deal with that except to know that it's the only, it is the one and only real reality. Basically, when you try to think or perceive in this way, new connections are being made in your consciousness. The big question is, how do we arrive at knowing experientially that we are what we really are, instead of what we seem to be? And a little piece of advice, I kind of do this spontaneously. I never know before one of these sessions what I'm going to talk about. There's so many aspects to it. But a little piece of advice to myself and to you. Never allow your consciousness to be captured by the form unless it is your intention to enter the myopic world and investigate the Maya of form. What happens with most consciousnesses is that they're immediately reduced to the level of perceiving bounded multiplicity, or a multiplicity consisting of bounded objects: chair, computer, statue, a candle, a sound, a beam of light, a vibration, captured by the partiality and forced to leave that which infuception reveals. It's automatic. We say, oh, isn't that interesting? And they were captured. Now, if you do that on purpose, that's okay. But most people just find the breadth and the depth of their unitary consciousness reduced by the demanding object, the object demanding attention. So be aware that this is happening all the time. And also, and this is another big thought, attempt to realize that this intra-universal motionless isness is you. Now that's a real big jump, because we say, well, we become aware of motionless isness, but the usual attitude is, well, there it is, and here I am. We can't get out of that duality that is so often characterizing our consciousness. But we can work on something much higher. And it's felt in the heart, okay, where the life and being are. That substratum of motionless isness is you. And me, all as one something. So if we can detect the substratum of universal origin, the origin of all perceptions, we have detected ourself, which it's a big jump, because from looking in the mirror and saying, well, that's who I am, a really, really big jump. Now, no matter what aspect of form you may mistake for yourself or for anything else, attempt to realize that the motionless isness from which such a form arose is the real you, and not the form itself. Now that's the essence of the whole thing. That the motionless isness from which any and all forms arose is the real you, and not the form itself. And when you're looking at it, doesn't even have to be your own, so to speak, form. It can be anything. You're not looking at the real thing. You're looking at the thing under the guise of Maya, which Shankara says is most mysterious and forever. And I will say, adding, cyclically forever. But whatever you see, whatever bounded form you see, you hear, you taste, you smell, any of these senses and their extensions, that form is not the real you, but that from which the form arose is the real you. Now, how do we get to the point where we begin to really perceive that? Or maybe we should say, infusive that. I think everyone will have to find his or her own way, a few ideas, attempt to realize that all within universe, which seems to be taking place, and this is an important verbal distinction, is taking place as is the word, taking place as you, not just in you, which is already an advanced stage. The contrast between as and in. You are the actor in all myopic interactions. Now, all this, of course, does not give us the permission to ignore Maya. Maya is what we do periodically. We become the Maya while not becoming the Maya. And therein lies the great contradiction, apparently. It's just a different universe when these experiences, or shall we call them inperiences, begin to take over the consciousness. One can only imagine what the masters are perceiving, and to a much greater extent, the Christ and the Buddha. They're not talking from the same limited type of perception that we are talking from. Something has happened within their awareness, within their consciousness, which is really different from what we experience. So just, get that idea in mind. We have higher points of tension, or let's call them, again, points of revelation, which we must learn to experience. And we will. But if, to the extent that time is myopically real, or at least actual, the time equation for when the experiences start to arrive or arise is pretty much in our hands. So much depends on what you and I, the tiny myopic beings, really want. If we keep on wanting a limited life of limited perceptions, very limited, that's what we'll get. A couple of more things. When you attempt to focus within the cyclic Mahamaya, which is our usual world, planet, system, galaxy, universe, it's everything. When you attempt to focus within the Mahamaya, which is a universe and its multitudinous forms. And here's one of the little mantras. Focus first as the isness of the form on which you are normally intending to focus. If I'm looking at this chair next to me, I could say, well, it's got a blue pad. It's a gray chair. It's made out of wicker. It's sturdy. I could, dive into the form immediately. But if I focus first on the isness of this form, I will be in a different state of awareness and of being. And only then, after I establish the beingness of the form on which I wish to focus, should I get into the details of the quality of the form without losing the isness. So focus first on isness. We don't usually do that. That's my assessment. We don't usually do that. We have to learn to do that. I have to learn to do that. I often forget to do that. I get pulled into quality immediately. I like it, I don't like it, it's good, it's bad. It's this color, this sound, this vibration, that vibration. And so I get pulled into the many before I have established the reality of the one. Note the vibration of immovable life being in your heart when you focus on all things. And the basic idea here, I do believe it is the heart as the seat of life. And the idea here is very simple mantra: isness first. Deceptively simple, of course. You can almost feel your consciousness oscillating between form first and isness first until the still point is reached. So learn to use the mantra, isness first. So simple. But as you know and I know, elusive. It slips away from you, from your normal consciousness. It's like the old mystics saying that, well, I'll kind of make it up a bit. A fly in God is worth more than a treasure out of God. Or one thing that struck me from reading the mystics 50 years ago, you've heard it, I know. Break the twig, and I am there. Now, is it possible to live a practical life in Maya and still sustain isness first? You know, I wouldn't be talking about these things if I didn't think it was possible. You really have to do both. Isness first. Motionless isness first. Life being motionless isness first. And then a turn will come into our usually benighted consciousness. One more thing came to me after I finished this, and maybe I just kind of read it and offer it as a thought. Learn that there is a distinction between the beating heart and the motionless heart. It'll be said, well, the heart has to beat, of course, in the realm of Maya. And if it stops beating, you're going to die, and die to form. But there's a way that the heart can beat and not beat at the same time. There is the beating heart, which governs the rhythms and cycles of all things, all perceptions, and the motionless heart, which reveals the substratum, the reality, the source, the universal logos, and beyond. We can't get into what lies beyond any universe in any way but speculatively. But since a universe is only a collection of self-perceptions, we know there is absolute infinitude beyond any universe. But that's another subject. But they're all interrelated, these subjects. And if we want to get out of the strictly human consciousness and even beyond the consciousness of the kingdom of souls and into the consciousness of the planetary lives, we have to address this subject of being. Until it becomes a great reality in our life, because we can really put isness first. Just ponder for a little bit about what we've covered here in this lecture meditation, and we'll, if you have any thoughts or questions, we'll try to look at those. It must be clear that we are looking for the ultimate simplicity when it comes, at least to any universe, including this one. We're looking for the ultimate simplicity, ultimate universal simplicity, and we're looking to find what we are as that simplicity. Now remember, just struck me. Remember DK saying, simplicity governs the way into Shamballa. It might be in Dyna 2, page, I think page 518, somewhere he was talking to a first ray monad man. simplicity governs the way into Shamballa. Well, friends, I know the language is a little unusual. And, maybe you're going to make up your own way of thinking about these things. You don't have to accept what I say. I'm just doing my best to point out one way of, or one path on the road to becoming the reality we forever are. But one day we can be assured, as it ever has been, infinitudinously, that again the door will open and we will be released from our very small, cramped, confining self-perceptions. Egotism or egoism is the worst trap. And it's just a natural thing. We're going to go through that, but the day of release has to dawn sometime. And we've been through it forever. And, sometimes in slang language, you say, oh, look, I've done that forever. But that's the truth of the matter when it comes to this going forth from our true selfhood and returning to our true selfhood. We've done this forever, cyclically, always with something new, because after all, absolute infinity is absolute infinity. You're not going to run out of possibilities. It's mind-boggling, I know, but maybe a good boggled mind is something we need now and then, along with functioning in the Mahamaya in a reasonable manner. And the sun comes out. We have, late days here in Finland because it's still summer and the sun sets very late. And every once in a while it shines through the one of the windows in the temple here. So try to give a little time every day to the idea of isness first. You may say, hey, that's way ahead of me, and I'm more interested in the path and the normal approach and all that. And I say, yeah, that's great, and I am too. So we've got to continue to do the right thing. We have to perfect our soul contact. We have some corrections to do, as are found in the various 12-step programs that really are very solid. How to straighten out your life and be on good terms with your fellow human beings. We have to do all that. And then we also might want to get a little idea, a little flash of something else that lies in the consciousness of the masters and the Chohans and still greater beings, who knows, but someone knows. We don't know yet, but we will again know. Alrighty. So if there are any thoughts or questions or whatever, I'll do my best in response to them. And if I don't know what I'm talking about, well, then I don't know. But then maybe something I say will be useful. Okay.
Okay, we have something from Anne Veronica, which is lengthy. So this motionless reminds me the root cause. It is as if that motionless isness is the rootless cause of motion. It is a point of tension where motion is revealed. It is so motionless that it is all, including motion. My more concrete mind says that giving isness to be motionless, you give it a quality. On the other hand, you are talking about the in-universe, so it will have quality. It also reminds me the mudra Tuya shows us, the one hand on top of the other with the fingers touching. The one world is the substratum of the other world. Motionless, the substratum of motion. When one becomes a point, he is the whole, and then all is revealed. The 0 point from where everything is born, having a 360-degree view of everything and being one with all. You can feel that vibration of essence of life itself. Some thoughts.
Yeah, a lot of good thoughts, and a lot of truth, I think. When I look at isness, I look at it as the one whatever that is divorced from quality. Quality usually requires a series to be compared. I mean, you might say, okay, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, whatever. There's a series. And within that series, every step represents a quality. But isness has no parallel. It is unchallenged by otherness of any kind. So ultimately, when you get into the ultimate isness, we're dealing with the absolute, which is, it's only, looking for the words, it's only presentation or something, I can't think of a good word, is just its own nature, which is unrepeatable. There just is no other. So there's no series. Every time you talk about quality, you've got a series. It can be the 7 or 8 notes of the octave. It can be the colors. It can be the series of planets in our solar system, or of solar logoi in our 7 solar systems. It can be a group with differentiated parts, all of which represent something a little different than the others. But that, to me anyway, that's not so about isness. Isness is, well, the absolute sharedness. There is no thing that does not have identical isness. Absolutely identical. I don't care what series we're talking about. The isness of it is identical with every item in every other qualificatory series. That's how I think of it. But of course, language is a big limitation, and words used will oftentimes slip into a preconceived groove rather than be used in the way that the user originally intends. So, if I'm looking here at my computer and this statue of the God of Justice, they're really different in the myopic world. One is black, electronic. The other is a bronze cast, which has a woman's form and the scales of Libra. One after another, I'm going to find the differences. But first, let me find the identicality of the isness, which each has arisen from. So I guess what I'm saying is, when I think of it anyway, I mean, everybody can think in their own way. I do not consider isness as a quality. I consider it as the substratum of every of every possible perception, including the absolute infinitude of perceptions, which I hypothesize is the prerogative of the Supra Universal Logos. And I just practice this, sometimes better than others, but I just practice seeing everything as the same, and yet not in the myopic world. And sometimes, click, there it goes. It is the same. And if I want a further click, I am that sameness. I'm not so successful there. My little self is not so successful there, but getting better. It needs to be practiced, in my view. Anything I say, obviously, is simply in my own view, and from the point of view of where I have climbed on my own the mountain of perception. I hope a little bit I've done on my own, but it's also true that we stand on the shoulders of giants, which basically is the Newtonian idea. Okay, I hope I made myself a little clear, at least on my own perception of these things. But very good, I think, well stated paragraph of thoughts. Anything else now, Michael?
That is all.
Okay,
Everybody's in beingness right now.
well, and Veronica ventured in, right? She ventured in. Oh, really, folks, sometimes, 3 hours ahead of time, I say, oh, what shall it be today? And then I just allow some thoughts to come. But much more than the thoughts, I value the possible perception of identicality through the heart. That's what I really value. And I realize I'm a beginner. What do you have to be an expert in this? Every rung of the ladder brings more expertise. And, you can only kind of imagine the consciousness of a master, a Chohan, a 7th degree Chohan, or a being liberated onto the cosmic astral plane or beyond. What do we know of such things? But you can kind of imagine, or at least entertain yourself by imagining. Okay.
So we have 2 hands up now.
Yep.
So I'm gonna
Yep.
Ario and Karen. So Ario.
Yep. Ario. Yep.
Okay. Could we say that this is one way try to experience or realize or sense or comprehend oneness with capital letter oneness?
Yes, very much. I think so. I think, that's what we're after. It's the old problem of the solving the problem of the one and the many. And you know how we get trapped in the many. We have to learn how to deal with that because life in the universe is not totally simple. It's got a huge amount of complexity, but the search, as you are suggesting, is for the oneness which we are. And that's the extra little bit. We can say, I am searching for oneness, but if we do that, we have created a split. So we are searching to realize ourselves as the oneness and to know that we are that oneness. Now that is really another step, because the person who says, as many people do, I have achieved oneness, has split the two. They're separated. And DK actually does, in one of the rare places where he talks about all this, he says that's not how it's done. So, but in general, you can say, along with isness first, you can say oneness first, being first, the substratum first. You can say all those things because the oneness does not have any competition. It is what is. Now, I don't want to turn us all into a bunch of head in the cloud mystics. We have a lot to do in this world that we have become, not just made. God made the world, no, but God became the world. We have a lot to do in order to make the design at the beginning appear at the end. At the same time, we have to always put the oneness first, isness first, being first, and then we get into all the little qualitative adjustments, that kind of thing. We have to be really careful with language so that the language we use does reflect as close as possible what we're actually trying to say about our experiences. But yeah, if you want to use oneness first, okay. I mean, because it's the objective. Okay. And Karen too, right?
Yeah, Karen.
Go ahead, Karen. You can.
Okay. I've been thinking as you've been talking about, the boundless immutable principle, the absolute, which I have read many times and thought about many times, but in terms of, you're talking about motionlessness, it brought to mind, that's what I call the still point between the in-breath and the out-breath. When we're in meditation, I try to always mention that or think about that. What is that, And one of the...
Wait a second. We've got a voice in the background. Where is that coming from?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's her answering machine.
Yeah, it's Tom's answering machine and I just turned it off, but
Okay.
sorry about that. I thought my headphones would not include that.
Okay.
So that's interesting because I thought it would exclude that. But anyway, I'm thinking about the word still point. That's for me that point in between the in-breath and the out-breath. And then a physical experience that I've had that I can tap into is when I've been out on the ocean, there's a point between the ebb and the flow, which is called slack tide. And when I've experienced that, that's to me what I would call, closest to what I've ever experienced in the physical realm about that still point.
That's good. If we have certain references from our daily experience which suggest higher things and which give us the sense of participation at a higher point of tension, whatever works, let's be pragmatic about it. If you have identified a concept, an experience, a place, whatever, and by invoking the presence of that, either by going there or doing something or remembering it, then you already have a point of reference. And that still point is always existing. Intra-universally in one way, and supra universally, about which we can't say too much. But the whole idea of still is what I was trying to get at by the word motionless. And stillness has its revelations. So, even in normal meditation, if we can do this, be still and know that I am God, I mean, what a mysterious statement that is. We already have an anchor. So I would just say, whatever works in the stillness, in the silence, reality is revealed. In a bunch of motion, which grabs us habitually, a reality is not revealed. So we have to carry somehow that stillness in the midst of movement. And that is an art, I guess. And it seems to me that the masters can do it at will. And even more so, the still higher degrees. They can be still in the midst of the hurricane of normal samsara, the normal interactive motion of many things. So, yeah, if you found a way to find the anchor, then just develop it. And who knows what might be revealed.
So you would think that that word still point is kind of what we're talking about here with motionlessness.
The still point and motionlessness, I could equate that. And once you start with the idea of point, I'm going to get into a lecture meditation sometime about the point and whether it really exists or what it is. And it's most mysterious, but for practical purposes, we do want to achieve a still point. Let's see, a Parmenian still point in the midst of a Heraclitan motion. These are like two opposites in pre-Greek, pre-Socratic philosophy. Parmenides on one side and Heraclitus on the other. And we want to be able to bring them together, which seems like a contradiction. How can you be still and be in motion at the same time? And we have to solve that one. I would, yeah, if it's a good term for you, it can be very meaningful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Karen. Thank you.
Okay, so one statement, one question. Vivian G question. So is the quality, the path of return, forever more refined and in the center of our galaxy is said to be a black hole through which all is absorbed except the isness?
Well, you can never absorb being. Being just is. Whatever you name, a white hole, a black hole, a galaxy, a family of galaxies, they all are characterized by being first. It's just in mathematics, let's just say, being or isness is the common denominator. We may have a black hole, but there are all these transitions between planes, and we call them, from one point of view, they look like black holes. Maybe from another point of view, they look like white holes. They separate or make possible transference from one point of tension to another. A galaxy is a minor blip in the universal process, but for us, it's a huge thing. And once we realize that even these huge number, billions of galaxies, are simply forms arising out of being, it's a different perspective altogether. And the number of experiences that lie ahead of us as we re-become what we already are just not fathomable to our present state of consciousness, but they are inevitable, and it's been going on cyclically forever. It's really hard to get the forever concept in our consciousness. I find, for myself, that the term beginninglessness is really challenging. Somehow, maybe it's how my mind is constructed, I can conceive better of endlessness than of beginninglessness. But, well, I'm going to use slang here, okay? We have been around forever, cyclically forever. Now, even just dwelling with that thought can be revelatory. You just can't be wiped off the map. I have a very close friend who's brilliant and materialistic, and he expects, basically one life, one body, that's it, zip, gone forever. But this way of thinking is much different than that. It's being around forever. It's, and when I say around, of course, it's just slang words. Being the unrepeatable thing, I'd have to search for the words, being the subject of everything forever, as far back as you want to go, forever. Just using human concepts, as far backward as you want to go, as far forward as you want to go. You are the subject of it all. And what is the subject? It's the origin, really, of it all. Now, these are, Christianity would consider these are heretical thoughts. Back in the old days, they just put you to death for saying such things. But from my own best thought, which has not yet really been achieved, but I'm working on it, that's what I understand. That we are forever the very origin of the process, and that we are both changeless and full of infinite change in the Supra Universal Mahamaya, which we call absolute infinity. So, you can't really throw words around, and I know I'm doing it. You have to sit with these things and see if more light will enter the consciousness if you're very quiet, maybe very still, at a still point, you know, very quiet. You reserve a certain amount of myopic time, say for 15 minutes or a half hour. I'm going to ponder that, which means to sit by the shore of the ocean of reality and see what new insights might come. And after a long time of doing that, new types of awareness will start percolating into the consciousness. Well, I'm sorry, I kind of forgot where I started on all that, but that's what I'm trying to offer in this series of programs, which had a definite beginning and will have a definite end, but it's about beginninglessness and endlessness, really. Anything else?
Yes, two short comments. Tia Clark, entering through the heart and isness first. Thank you for this. And Catherine P, zero pressure by tension mounted.
Zero pressure.
By
Sounds
tension, zero pressure by tension mounted.
I want to look at it. Okay. Well, you know, whatever we take away from it, even if it's just a little bit can go a long way. And it's better to have even a little flash that we can encapsulate in a mantra than it is to have all kinds of complicated book learning about these things. So, you know, if you can take something away and dwell with it, now that's the thing. You got to dwell with it. I realize the more I get into this that if I don't really dwell with it, I've just skimmed the surface, and the full value of the mantra or the experience just isn't there. And remember, it's got to be meaningful to you. Maybe what you say or think is not going to, you know, score a big hit with some other people that have to find their own language and their own way. But if you can come up with something really meaningful to you and ponder it until the turn starts to happen, then something good is happening. So thanks there for your thoughts, Tia and Catherine. Okay, anything else?
That's all.
Okay. And as you know, I'm trying to find a time where we can just have questions and answers on the path of occultism, but basically it would mean that whoever wants to participate has to think first about what's really a question for them. Because the very first statement in the 4 suggestions given in a treatise on white magic is inquire the way. So you have to kind of ask yourself certain questions, and then if you want to bring them in for others to comment or possible expansion, then, but only after you have thought it through. What do I really want to know? For some people, it's as simple as, where do I stand on the path of discipleship? Questions like that. For others, I can't even name all the questions that can come up, but it's all part of inquire the way, and then, as you know, obey the inner impulses of the soul. That's number 2. And number 3, you pay no attention to the wisdom of the so-called worldly wise, when that wisdom contradicts the spirituality you know about. In other words, you're not looking for worldly wisdom. You're looking for a different kind of wisdom that can be applied to the world. And finally, set an example. That's the hardest one of all. Set a good example for others. That is, that's it. It ends in a very practical way. So you can look in a treatise on white magic, and if we can fulfill those things, it's on the way to making us one day a master ourselves. And we will get there, of course. We will get there. But the question is, because we've done it countless times, we've already done it countless times. The one being has become the many countless times, and the many have retracted themselves into the one being, which is always the same. But we have to get these thoughts so they are more than just a bunch of thoughts running around the head. They've got to sink in, and we've got to be able to say, wait, if this is true, then X, Y, Z. There are results, there are consequences if these thoughts are true. But only by sitting with them can you understand whether they are really true or not. So it's a job, and it's a very interior job. And there's, the normal person in the world will say, well, you've got nothing to show for it. What good has it done you? But you will know from the change of your perceptions what good it has done for you. And then more and more, the sphere of knowledge comes together. And more, you can learn to think like Master DK or some of the other Johans and great souls. Okay, friends, well, thanks for hanging in there. And gosh, what's up for tomorrow night? Is it glamour or what is it?
Glamour's tomorrow.
Did you say
Glamour.
glamour is
Well,
tomorrow?
dissipation of glamour.
On Friday, yes.
Glamour is Friday. That's tomorrow.
Yep.
Okay. We have to be flexible, don't we? We're going from very abstract studies here into something very concretely practical, that is helping to solve a world problem. Glamour, a world problem. So then, lots of love from all of us here on the communications team. And we'll keep trying to bring to you different aspects of the ageless wisdom, so we can have a chance to think together and experience together. And I suppose that BL will be putting this up on Makara, and Joe, I suspect Harold will put this up on YouTube, our usual channel.
Yes, they'll both be up today.
Fantastic. Okay, great. And thank you for your help, communicators, and thank you everybody who has attended. And now we just keep going. That's the thing. We just do our best to keep going. Keep on keeping on, as they used to say in the arcane school. All right, so I'm going to stop the recording, and then I suppose the host, who I suppose is Michael Crow, will turn the program off. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye for now.